I actually say the plants are the predators and we are the prey. They are taking good control of us. Grass and grains will fry our brains, and they cause war, pestilence, disease everywhere.
Doesn't dinner sound great as it's cooking? This dinner is from Riverbend Ranch, which always provides prime or high choice. Has never been given hormones, never been given antibiotics, never been given mRNA vaccines. It's raised in the USA. It's processed in the USA. In fact, it's fully vertically integrated, which means that they own the cow that gives birth to the calf that's raised on their fields and then taken to their butcher and then shipped to you. And if we compare what we can buy from Riverbend Ranch to 4 other major steak companies that sell bundles that have ribeyes and other meat in it, it can be as much as $184 to $59 less expensive. It's a great price value, and it's a delicious piece of meat. Check out mycleanbeef.com/after-hours. That's mycleanbeef.com/after-hours. mycleanbeef.com/after-hours.
Welcome to After Hours with Dr. Sigaloff. On this podcast, you will be encouraged to question everything and to have the courage to stand for the truth. And now, to your host, Dr. Sigaloff.
Thank you so much for joining me again. I first want to give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters. We've got Too Tough giving $30 a month. We've got an anonymous family donor giving $20.20 a month. We have the Plandemic Reprimando level at $17.76 with Ty, Charles, Tinfoil, Stanley, Dr. Anna, Frank, Brian, Shell, Brantley, and Gary. We have the Self-Made level at $10 with Kevin and Pat and Bev. The Refine Not Burn level at $5 a month with Linda, Emmy, Joe, PJ, Rebecca, Marcus, Elizabeth, Dawn, Ken, Rick, Mary, Amanda. Addison Mulders giving $3 a month. We have Frank giving $1.50 a month. And we have The Courage is Contagious at $1 a month with Jay, Spess Nasty, Durrell, Susan, BB King, and Caleb. And be sure and check out mycleanbeef.com/after-hours for the best steaks that I've ever cooked, and I'm sure that you've ever cooked as well. My next guest is Dr. Kiltz. He's a world-renowned fertility doctor. He's been featured on the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Parents Magazine, The Today Show, and many more, all for reducing the cost of in vitro fertilization. And the way he does this is by diet. Dr. Kiltz is a diplomat of the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology and fellowship trained in board-certified reproductive endocrinology and infertility. Dr. Kiltz, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Sam, thank you for my invitation. Please, Robert. I am so grateful that you've invited me here, and this is a subject that I think is so important for everyone to hear about.
So tell me where you start with patients, how you bring this idea, because what I've noticed is when I discovered carnivore, I was walking around like I was in a cloud, like I didn't know left from right, up from down, because it turned everything I knew and flipped it completely on its head. Eat more meat, but I just read an article last month, doctor, that meat causes diabetes. How do you square that off with patients?
Well, I usually ask them is if what they're doing is not making them better, why wouldn't they be open to something completely opposite? And, is it a conspiracy that someone's trying to kill us all or control us all? I have no idea. I actually say the plants are the predators and we are the prey. They're taking good control of us. But ultimately, people call me for advice how to get pregnant, have a baby, reduce miscarriages. And I love talking about overall health and wellness, both in the mind and the body, which all are one essentially. But if I can inspire you to think differently than we've all been taught, why wouldn't you open up your mind for a moment and just be imaginative that there is something opposite? I talked to a young lady yesterday who had Ehlers-Danlos. She had every inflammatory condition in the world. She was on Social Security and she couldn't work. And her mind couldn't quite open up to the possibility that a diet like carnivore was better than the drug she was using. But I didn't give up on her. I kept the story going. And I think it's one thing we need to be open to doing as doctors, clinicians, healthcare providers, healthcare, not sick care providers. If I can help you be healthy without ever needing me as a doctor, I've done my job.
Right. Now, obviously, there's some problems with that. I mean, you and I are on the same page that we would rather see healthy people and never have to see them again. But the overwhelming majority of medicine is going a different direction. Here, take this, and then we'll give you this for the side effect of that, and then a side effect, another medication for the other side effects, and now we're polypharmacy, we're 20 meds deep, and that's not the goal.
Well, we're trained in diagnosing disease and differentiating which drugs, dissections, or other specialists you might need in order to help you with your problem. What we haven't been trained at is the cause of disease. And I now have figured it out because personally I suffered arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, bowel bleeding. I'll go down the list: depression, anxiety, fearfulness, inferiority complex. I'll go down the list. When I went from a plant-based, low animal fat diet, lean meat, and switched it to primarily fatty meat, carnivore, salt and water, everything went away in like 1 month. And I've never felt better in my life. And I'm like, whoa, what have I been doing to my patients? And never asking them about what they eat ever, to a point where I make it a point to ask them, what do you eat? What is your diet? And they usually say healthy, organic, clean, balanced. And I'm like, no. Exactly what do you buy and what do you put in your mouth? That's critical for me to know the likely cause of your problems and every disease you're suffering from.
That's amazing. I mean, one thing I'd love to dive into with you is the plants, because you mentioned plants are the predators. I'd love to go into that deeper, because I remember learning about, I lived in Alaska, and I remember the rabbit population, they'd say, would fluctuate. And I assumed, in my ignorance, that it was due to predators. As the rabbit population go up, the predator population go up, and that would drive them back down. And in reality, the plants release some sort of signal to other plants that keep propagating that signal that causes the female rabbits to abort their fetus. That should terrify everyone.
Well, if you look at the United States Department of Agriculture's Journal on Plant Poisoning, they're looking for plants that harm the livestock, because when the livestock get damaged and sick, they lose money. But when you and I get sick, they make money. And so is it a conspiracy? I'm not here to sort of push that paradigm, but I'm here to push the fact that I've learned something opposite. And plants make chemicals, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, are all highly addictive chemicals that everyone is using and considering much of it. Now, marijuana is part of that. Oh, it's an okay thing to take. What are we thinking? What are we doing? And the point, you are what you eat. Pigs, cows, and sheep eat grass and grains. Lions eat pigs, cows, and sheep. Would you rather be a lion or a pig, cow, and sheep? Lions never line up. They're wild type. They're not easy to control. But pigs, cows, and sheep, you can control them, corral them, convince them that, you're the leader. But in fact, lions are not easy, and we're lions through and through. We evolved as hunters. We can gather and we can eat plants. You can do that, but that doesn't mean it's overall good for you. But if you're sick and suffering, I always say, look to the food you're eating. Likely it's plants, and there's so many plants that contain chemicals to cause miscarriage, to cause infertility, to cause loss of libido on both sexes, and to damage your brain. And plants are made of sugar. Sugar in your gut ferments. That means the microbes in the gut, bacteria and yeast, love to eat the plants, the fiber, and they make heat, alcohol, aldehydes, and methane gas. Is that good for you? No. But we feed our children plant-based food. And even when you say processed food, it doesn't matter if it's kale, lettuce, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, or it's some processed wheat flour that you're making some other product out of. That essentially, if you think about flour, it's the number one addictive chemical that human beings have ever discovered and then invented, if you think about it. And without that, we propagated the population of the world to grow exponentially by feeding us sugar, which ultimately is deadly for us, which again is kind of radical concept, but I have written about this. I talk about it. I blog about it. I'm convinced if I can help you or anyone else in this world find health and wellness by simply switching over to mostly fatty meat and you minimize plant material, you'll be healthier than you've ever known.
Oh, 100%. Before we started filming, I mentioned that I had 2 patients with rheumatoid arthritis. They went on beef, salt, and water, and their symptoms went away completely. They stopped all their medications. I had a guy who was taking, I don't think I mentioned this, but 80 units of insulin every day. And in the first week, he went down to 10 units. And within 2 months, he was off of everything for blood pressure, for diabetes, for everything. It's like you put the right fuel in the machine, you get the proper performance.
The beauty of social medicine, social media, is we're now able to share all this information without your doctor, without the experts, without the government, with simply you have the knowledge to seek out, but by finding people like yourself, Sam, that are sharing knowledge that everyone can listen and learn from. That's the beauty of what's going on today. Used to be you had to get accepted to medical school, get allowed even into the university library. I mean, even if you want to find many articles online today, you have to pay for them. But open access is what we should all have around the globe, and that's where health and wellness comes in. And I think each and every one of us has the right to learn how to care for ourselves medically, scientifically, and spiritually also.
I mean, all the nutrition information that I gleaned was not from medical school. It was only 1 hour in medical school. And I taught it to myself by following doctors like yourself and Dr. Ken Berry and Sean Baker and Paul Saladino. I mean, the list goes on. Jason Fung. And by learning from them, you can learn so much more when you're not looking at the approved sources, the fact checkers. Because all this information, they go, oh, well, you can't eat that. It goes back to, are you a lion? And you're not going to do what they tell you, or are you going to be an animal that does whatever it's told?
Right. We are essentially domesticated animals. Lions and wolves that are fed plants become domesticated cats and dogs, which also get every disease that we get because dogs and cats are carnivores that have been fed a plant-based diet. And just look at the cat and dog food that you buy at your local food mart for animals. And it's sad to me, but I'm inspired by what we're all sharing here in the carnivore world. Keto's good, but carnivore's like amazing. And again, you can be a vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, pescatarian. You can be whatever you want. But if you're suffering and you want to eliminate doctors and drugs and dissections, Carnivore.
Exactly. And
That's all.
like you said, some people can't do carnivore. Start with keto. Start with anything. And then as you go more and more, you'll discover, hey, I feel better when I eat more fatty meat. My joints quit hurting.
Yes. Yes. Lions that don't eat meat become meat. So any human being that says to me, well, I can't eat meat, I'm like, well, you are a lion. So you have all the fixings to eat meat, but we've psychologically convinced you that meat is bad, that you're going to get cancer. You've never seen meat in the toilet. I'm sorry. It doesn't come out the other end. Vegetables do. Plants do. That's it.
That's great. Yeah. Everyone knows what you're talking about there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we all piss, poop, fart, burp, smell. We all are human beings. And the beauty of carnivore, and when I fatty meat, salt water is the foundation of carnivore to me. And I think the organ meats like the liver are great, but you don't have to eat them. It's okay. But you get every mineral and vitamin, every micro and macronutrient by eating fatty meat. And the adipose tissue, which most people cut off when they're eating their meat, which is deadly to do. You eat the fat, it provides the minerals, the vitamins, and it suppresses inflammation in the gut when you eat the fat. That's critical to know.
Yeah, so let's go into the fat and how that works a little bit more, because that is an interesting thing. And that's when I had that patient go from 80 units down to 10 units of insulin in a week. It's obvious. It's the saturated fat that works like a signaling molecule that makes you more insulin sensitive. Whereas the polyunsaturated fatty acids that we're told to eat, all these bad oils, vegetable oils, it makes you more insulin sensitive. It's like a signaling molecule.
Well, I think the killer is a plant-based, protein-based, low-fat diet. So I don't know how deadly plant oils really are. There really hasn't been a good study on that, in my opinion, because everyone that's eating plant oils is still likely eating plants and protein and no fat. Okay? So when you eat food, it breaks down to amino acids from proteins, simple sugars from carbs, and fatty acids from fat. In that also comes the minerals and the vitamins that are important, but also the anti-nutrients and the chemicals that are harmful and helpful. But basically, let's just take amino acids, simple sugars, and fatty acids. So fat, when you eat it, it goes to the lymphatics and it's distributed everywhere in your body. When you eat protein, amino acids, carbs, simple sugars, they both go to the liver. Insulin converts both of those things to fat in the liver. But because a sugar-based, amino acid-based diet damages your liver cells, it suppresses your liver's ability to convert those things to fat via insulin. So your amino acid and sugar levels begin to rise, your insulin level begins to rise. And since most people eat 3 to 6 meals a day, their gut is always full of food, which is always digesting 24/7, 365. So that means you're always delivering amino acids and sugars to your liver. So even though you think you're fasting, your gut still has food in it. As long as your GI tract has food in it, you're sending sugars, which glycate, which rust your cells, and you're sending amino acids, which go to the liver. They're converted to sugars and then they're converted to fat via insulin. That's the simple story. So when you say, or anyone says, insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance is liver damage. Insulin sensitivity just means that your liver works better and you have insulin to convert the amino acids and sugars fast enough to fat. So fat is actually the most important molecule in our body, adipose tissue. But we blame fat and obese people for the cause of disease when in fact it has nothing to do with the cause of disease. The cause of disease is a low animal fat and a high plant protein-based diet. So fat, when you eat it, and when I say fat, I'm talking about animal fat, it suppresses the microbes in the mouth, the esophagus, and the gut. The microbes love to cause havoc in our bodies, does it not? Bacteria, yeast, and viruses all run havoc in our bodies, and the gut is the single leading place for that to happen. But we don't eat fat, so everyone is just fueling the microbial growth. And if you read James Henry Salisbury's work on Salisbury steak, he found that the microbes in the gut proliferate on a plant-based diet. And when he shifted to a meat-based diet, the microbes were suppressed, the gut healed, his men in the Civil War got better, and voila, Salisbury steak guy, a doctor, Albany Med, 1850. This is not new stuff. You don't need a new scientific paper to give you the answer. It's really already there in our history and our evolution, our archaeology, and anthropologic studies of humanity.
Well, yeah, if you look back in history and you look at, well, let's say, what the Egyptians fed the people that worked for them, the slaves, compared to what the Egyptians ate, there's a difference in their diet, and the difference is meat.
Bread and beer. They fed the slaves, soldiers, peasants, and prisoners bread and beer. The pharaohs, the kings, the queens, all the hierarchy, yes, they ate more meat, but they also were highly diseased, but mostly the peasants, prisoners, slaves, and soldiers, which basically are all told to eat fruits, fiber, vegetables, seeds, nuts, lean meat, and preferably protein from a plant, which I've never seen protein in a plant personally.
Yeah, plants don't have proteins that we can use. I mean, it's just, they don't exist.
Well, I mean, basically pea protein. I mean, again, when we say protein, we're usually talking about muscle meat. But adipose tissue contains proteins, amino acids, simple sugars, fatty acids, all the minerals and vitamins. If you look at bears that hibernate, they lose fat, they lose no muscle and no bone mass, and they basically hibernate and gestate for 6 to 8 months. Well, how is it that they didn't lose muscle mass or bone mass? It's because fat is the building block for every single cell of our body, including a baby.
So how do you get people to start changing their eating habits? Like, what do you say? Start with this, start with that, or just jump straight in?
Well, listen to someone like yourself or myself or Baker, Bella, Barry, Chafee. I mean, there's so many more people growing in this carnivore space. Begin to listen and learn from others. We have a course, and I've got books on our Mighty Tribe or drkiltz.com. It really is keep it simple. I do bacon, eggs, butter, beef, and salt. But if you want to just do fatty meat, salt, water, it's all run. You want to eat 3 to 6 times a day, I don't care. I generally recommend one meal at night is the very best way. But if you want to do a snack or two, it's beef and butter, a little bit of salt. It's amazing. I recommend that highly. But the challenge with nutrition, if you think about it, the initial nutritional education came out of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which basically shared a story of a plant-based diet. And if you look at the Kellogg's brothers, they were also sharing a plant-based diet. I think they're controlling diets to make us sick, weak, and meek. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, maybe it's trying to help people, but at the end of the day, it's highly hurtful to all of us to eat a plant-based, low animal fat diet. So if you want to be controlled, you'll find the science about a vegan vegetarian diet is not built in science. It's built in, I call it snake oil, doo-doo data that is basically trying to convince you to be a controlled human being. And the diet we're fed is leading us to damage. And if you look at the Seventh-day Adventists, they're one of the largest controllers of cereals in the globe. If you look at Graham from Graham Crackers, the Kellogg's brothers, and many others, they were very controlling of the world of breaking down wheat into a substance that's highly antigenic. It's all sugar, and it's highly addictive.
Yeah, I think when you see that, I saw this study, I think it was in high school when it came out, that Oreos hit the same center in the brain and are just as addictive as heroin. It's mind-blowing. It's like,
Well, if you think about it, the taste of sugar, naturally when it was available before agriculture, was only for a very short amount of time. And it was to get us to eat it. Now, maybe the plants are saying, hey, they'll eat us, eat the seeds, they'll propagate them around the world in their poop. Great place to put them. Plants are smart. We also get value because nutritionally, we get in sugar that goes to the liver, and via insulin, it's converted to fat. Fat is critical to store so that if there's a war, gosh, what's happening in the world of war, and people can't get food, they better be fat so they can survive more days without it. But we've lived thousands, if not millions of years with a hardship to find food. And so we are supposed to get fat fast. We're supposed to eat less frequently. And the fat is the only fuel of your body. This idea to be skinny is, your brain is like, are you dumb? Like, what are you doing trying to burn all your calories in 2 days and then not eat for a week in order to be skinny? And then the famine comes or the sickness comes and you're screwed.
what is a body percent fat that you like to see in your women who are trying to become pregnant, who are having infertility issues? Because either too low a body percent fat is bad and too high is also not helpful.
Well, too little fat is the real culprit, but too much fat is not the cause of disease. It's the food you're eating right now that contains the chemicals, the sugars, the antigens, and the fermentation in your gut that's damaging every nook and cranny of your body. And so your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, your thyroid, your adrenals, your renals, your ovaries, your testicles are all damaged based on the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that's in plants, the heroin, cocaine, cyanide, nicotine, caffeine that are in plants that damage your organs, the sugars that damage the proteins. So the sugars glycate, they damage the protein, they cause it to have misalignment and abnormal folding that makes it like a prion or an amyloid particle that is going to be deposited in every nook and cranny of your body. It's going to cause disease. It's going to cause cancer, stroke, hypertension, diabetes, ALS, MS, lupus. I go down the list of every disease, you name it. I will bet that it's likely secondary to a plant-based low animal fat diet. And so if you're obese, you're carrying many calories to go weeks, if not months, and even a year without eating. And so by simply reducing the food frequency or the plant frequency and eating more fat, even when you're fat, the BMI doesn't matter. Except a low BMI, remember, if you don't have fat, the fat adipose tissue is providing acetyl-CoA, the minerals and vitamins and all the nutrients and the cofactors your body requires. They're not stored in your muscles or your bone marrow. They're stored in your adipose tissue. You want to think of fat as the most amazing thing ever invented or created by nature. It's the only thing that allows you to go through the winter without eating one bit of food.
Yeah, it's a great way to store energy, store fat, soluble nutrients. I mean, all of that just gets stored away in a small, compact area that doesn't melt, doesn't burn, doesn't go rancid. It's amazing.
Well, you store everything in fat, adipose tissue. I don't care if it's water soluble or fat soluble, because number one is you have water in your fat cells, in your cytoplasm, in your cells. So you're going to have the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic side of things, plus the charges that are determined by the glycobiome, the sugar layers that bind to every cell structure of your body to give your proteins the proper charge, the proper shape in order to determine their proper function. So people still think glucose is energy. It is not direct energy for the mitochondria. It must be converted to fat in the liver via insulin, or you cannot use it as energy. The same thing with amino acids, which is completely opposite of what people think.
Right. It's the opposite of what we're taught in school, med school, high school. I mean, all of them.
Or even science today, most people still think that ketosis means you go from burning sugar to burning fat. No way.
So can you go into ketosis a bit more then?
Well, I don't really measure ketosis, but ketone bodies, acetyl-CoA is a ketone body. Acetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetone, they're all ketone bodies along with acetyl-CoA. So you always have ketone bodies in your bloodstream. The glucose levels are high, the sugar levels. And by the way, there are about 10 to 11 sugars that are important in the human body that are for glycosylation. So I think, people think, well, I'm burning sugar because I'm eating sugar. Well, no, your sugar levels are going up in your bloodstream, in your cytoplasm, in your brain, everywhere in your body. And so your liver's job, along with insulin, is to say, wait a minute, you just took in food. My job in the food you're taking in is to store it as fat, convert it to fat. You're going to use some of the amino acids and some of the sugars or the glycans, the monosaccharides, and use them as for the glycosylation and also for protein building. But any other functions in the body that are required. But inflammatory food, which is going to deposit everywhere in your body. I mean, you think if you're going to eat cayenne pepper, it's only going to go through your gut and go to the liver and then where? It goes systemically. It causes damage to every cell of your body, but you just don't know it except on your tongue or in your lips or your mouth where you're feeling it. That's why I tell people you have to be very, very discerning in what you put in your mouth. And you might think, wow, I can tolerate all these hot peppers and all these things. Yeah, but they're doing damage deep inside you silently.
And if cayenne pepper isn't clearly obvious, that the hotness of it and other peppers, a self-defense for the plant, because it gets hotter as you get closer to the seeds, I don't know. I can't show you something if you can't see that. That is obviously a self-defense.
Onions, garlic, peppers, but there's solanase in potatoes, and all the plants. I don't care what it is. Look at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Journal on Plant Poisoning, plants that kill. Look at Anthony Chaffee's work. This stuff is not new. It's been around forever. We're lied to by the lions that want to keep you lined up, weak and meek.
Yeah, and we've had Anthony Chaffee on this show before. Go check him out. I don't remember the episode number before, but he was phenomenal. Just amazing information.
Yeah, Anthony is a rock star. So many people. I mean, I love Sean Baker because he's very simple. I mean, he's very knowledgeable. He really goes deep into the science, but ultimately, it's steak. You don't need organ meats. Just eat the steak and focus on fatty steak because the fat contains so many of the minerals and vitamins your body requires. And there's something called protein poisoning, rapid starvation. And so I think most people are eating a plant-based, lean meat diet, which is contributing to every disease we doctors diagnose and then likely define a specialist or a drug or a dissection that's going to help you survive. Oh, I hope you survive this. But in fact, too many people are dying. I have a list on my board at home. I talk about my people that I know that have passed away, and I believe it's secondary to a plant-based, low animal fat diet and eating 3 to 6 meals a day and focusing on negativity in your mind most of the time.
So what do you do to help get people to focus on the right things in their mind?
Well, I think the mental side is number one. And I talk a lot about positivity. I read and listen and watch a lot of content on all of these things. I've written books on these things. I do my 5 a.m. meetup every morning, Monday through Friday, hopefully to inspire some of us to think differently, to eat differently, to live differently. And you got to break the mold. We're living in this mold of modern world, and we have many blessings of the modern world, but we have also many sins of the modern world, and we need to learn to share this. And so, look at drkiltz.com, mindbodysmile.com. I have a book on daily inspirations, daily intentions. I'm infinitely reading other people's books. I love all the Bibles of all the religions of the world that are going to share positivity, love, kindness, generosity. And that's why I think it's important in this keto carnivore world. I'm not here to put anyone else down, even a vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, anyone. I don't care. I'm willing. I want to listen to your story. But I've learned some things that are radical. And don't trust or believe me, by the way. You're the only one that can take care of you. I'm not your doctor. I can, help you in this. But ultimately, you need to take responsibility for everything in your life. Everything. If whatever you think about the priest, your parents, the pope, the president, you're responsible for that story. Why wouldn't you make it the very best story ever that God created all of us to teach us, to instruct us, to guide us, to build us to be better every single day? So how do I do it? I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I like how your approach to this, because even the vegans and the vegetarians, I think the benefit that they have is that they've said the standard American diet is no good. So they're at least on a path. They might be a little different than what I think, but they're at least going a direction because they're saying something is wrong. I'm looking for a different answer. I just hope that they can see the answer that we've seen, because it's so radical, it's so different, and it can be scary for some people, but I've seen it change lives. I've seen it change minds. I've seen it change marriages.
It is the thing. We need to minimize or eliminate alcohol. Even coffee and tea of any significance may not be good for us and may be a contributing factor to some of our diseases or damage to our body. And some people can tolerate cow milk products. Some people can't. Some people do better on butter, which is fatty or cream, and some people can't. But you have to find what fits for you. Be experimental in your life. Don't take my word, my dogma for this. You got to go out there and you got to create some better story. You're going to say that Kiltz guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and you're right. I'm just sharing something I'm almost 68. At 55, I went carnivore. I learned to fly airplanes in that same year, by the way, and I'm constantly learning and listening to people like yourself, and I'll listen to vegan, vegetarians, Mediterraneans, pescatarians. I'll listen to everyone. But I also make sure that I listen to things and I'll spend more time going like, nope, see you later, bye. Or, wow, this is really inspiring. I want to learn more. But I have learned that if you read or listen to something that you don't believe in, but you want to do it in a way where you're going like, I wonder if that's really true. Let me study it a little bit more. Let me try to find angles where I might be able to say yes or say no. And so human beings are like the most amazing organism in the universe, but so is a rock. Think of all the things we've made out of rocks, right? Without the rocks, the minerals that come out of rocks, the metals that come out of rocks, or the sculpture that's come out of rocks, we would be in this great, amazing place of humanity that we are today.
Or we wouldn't even be able to drive to where we are right now because likely you crossed a bridge at some point that's made out of crushed up rocks.
Yeah, and look at us conversing here. In some way, someone else did something that people said, oh, no way, no way. And by the way, do a vegetarian version of keto paleo or a Mediterranean version, but I think the vegan side is really hard because you just can't get all the minerals and vitamins and the nutrients your body requires. And plus, as a purely plant-based diet, you're getting a lot of anti-nutrients. So you have to be very careful. I mean, infants have died and young children have died on a plant-based only diet. And adults don't understand that you need to take a industrially modern produced supplement that still may not provide everything you need and won't counteract the anti-nutrient particles and the hallucinogenic particles that come in plants.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really striking when I first started down this road of carnivore is when I realized, 100 years ago, I could not get a ripe banana and a ripe orange in the same store at the same time. So how could I eat all the colors of the rainbow and get all these things from one tropical climate and one arid climate? I couldn't, even 100 years ago. So how did humans eat that way? Why are doctors saying that? It doesn't make sense. And if I eat only plants, how could I have done that 1,000 years ago? Because I need B12, I need vitamin D, I need all these things that you can't get from plants.
There was a reason we were hunters. There's a reason if you look around the world at Aboriginal people, or I was watching a show on the San people from South Africa region, SAN, amazing people, hunters. And they're now fed flour and sugars, by the way. And I see the side effects, just like other Aboriginal peoples around the world. And we are hunters through and through. Meat is the most important thing we eat. And you can live on fatty meat alone without supplements, but you cannot eat on a plant-based diet alone without supplements. That's the problem.
100%. And also, having the medicine mind, thinking, oh, I remember them talking about this, chemotherapeutic agent originally being found in a plant. It's like, wait a second. The whole point of chemotherapy is to kill the fast-growing cells before you kill the rest of the human. And if we're taking them from plants, then maybe there's something bad in plants. Maybe not every plant, but there's some plants that have some bad stuff in them.
I'm in modern medicine. I'm in modern medicine, and I still practice standard medicine and surgeon, and do a lot of reproductive immunology. And the medications we utilize that come from plants originally and have been modified in the modern world have value based on the thousands of years of an agriculture-based diet, which likely is the single leading cause of all of our problems. And I think for some people in this modern world who still haven't seen this yet, we want to help them in the very best modern ways we can. But fasting and fat, a lot of people heal by just fasting and fat without the emergence of the drugs. I think the antimicrobials, the antifungal viral, and bacterial are quite valuable, since infectious agents are highly causative of the diseases we're all suffering in this world. But we're likely creating it. And if you see the wars of the world, they're often over grains. Grass and grains will fry our brains, and they cause war, pestilence, disease everywhere. And essentially, the power of the world is built in the control of the plants. And although the Portuguese used to catch cod abundantly, if you read the book by Kurlansky on cod, he has one on salt. But because of cod and salt, they were able to preserve a highly valued food source, which was codfish, and feed it to the armies that were so important for the evolution of our taking over many populations of the world, unfortunately. I'm not a big fish fan.
It's not as satisfying as beef.
No. I don't think, we obviously, once we develop the ability to fish and net, but I think ultimately we were mainly hunters on dry land. Our DNA is that of a dry land hunting animal, not a swimming, flying animal.
Dr. Kiltz, thank you so much. Where can we find you? Where can people who are thirsty for the knowledge that you're giving, where can they find you?
If you simply Google Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Kiltz will show up in one way or another. drkiltz.com, where YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We do something called the Kiltz Mighty Tribe, meets at 7:30 p.m. currently Eastern Time on Mondays. Everyone's welcome, and it's free for everyone. And I've written a number of books on Amazon. I love going to the meetups. I'm going to some of the other events, KetoCon in Austin. I think we're going to something in Orlando. We'll get more information, but I think this is important that each and every person that find the value of how keto, carnivore, faith, and fasting has helped them, share it, put it out there. If those diseases you're suffering from are going away, you don't need the drugs of the doctors anymore, share it. Amazing.
Absolutely. There's a guy at church who's on the worship team with my wife, and he's an older gentleman, but she just mentioned in passing one time carnivore. A few years later, or about a year and a half later, he finally tried it, and his arthritis is gone. He's slimmed down. He feels great. His wife has said he's like a new man. So share it.
Yeah, and I love, so everyone that finds this amazing thing, that they should share it. And you just speak it once, be the example, and begin to blog it and talk about it. I meet everyone I meet, I talk about it, and it's like, okay, there he goes, be careful, he won't shut up for a while now. But again, I love doctors. I highly respect people in healthcare, medicine. I know that is not an easy job for so many people. They don't know about this. And I'm really highly excited about the ability for all of us to share this around the globe. That is our job, to all languages, to all people. Meat must be available, preferably grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised. I love grain-finished. Personally, I don't think it really matters. Just get really fatty meat and share it with your family. Moms that are breastfeeding should eat the fatty meat, and their babies, once they're done breastfeeding, eat the meat off the bone once you're done with the milk off the breast.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dr. Kiltz. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. God bless.
Sam, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation and look forward to keep sharing the journey.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder for everyone out there, duty uniform of the day, the full armor of God. Let's all make courage more contagious than fear. Doesn't dinner sound great as it's cooking? This dinner is from Riverbend Ranch, which always provides prime or high choice. Has never been given hormones, never been given antibiotics, never been given mRNA vaccines. It's raised in the USA, it's processed in the USA. In fact, it's fully vertically integrated, which means that they own the cow that gives birth to the calf that's raised on their fields and then taken to their butcher and then shipped to you. And if we compare what we can buy from Riverbend Ranch to 4 other major steak companies that sell bundles that have ribeyes and other meat in it, it can be as much as $184 to $59 less expensive. It's a great price value and it's a delicious piece of meat. Check out mycleanbeef.com/after hours. That's mycleanbeef.com/after hours. mycleanbeef.com/after hours.